Okay, let's close our eyes for a moment. Okay, lesson 26, Sutra 33, chapter 1. The asanas propounded by Shiva are 84 in number. Of those, I shall describe 4, which are the quintessence. Those 4, Siddha, Padma, Simha, and Bhadra, are the most excellent. Of these, the most comfortable Siddhasana can always be assumed. First of all, Siddhasana is not most comfortable. You will see. I don't know why Svatmarama is saying that. But something special is happening here. We've had an introduction to those asanas that we learned up until now. Each of those asanas was described in one sutra. The last 2 or 3 asanas were described in 2 sutras. But now clearly there is a division. The following asanas are described with 8 or 9 sutras. But not only that, Sutra 33 says that these are specifically propounded by Shiva. So not by Vasistha, not by Machendra, no, all the way back to the source, the origin of mankind, all the way back to the god Shiva. So that's symbolical language for indicating that although what came before was special, this is even more special. What does that mean in practical terms? These are not normal asanas. These asanas are, I mentioned it already, Kundalini, typical Kundalini asanas. But not only that, you will see in the description that they are not just asanas, they are meditation poses. So there are 4, Siddha, Padma, Simha, and Bhadra. In 35, Siddhasana is described. Press the perineum with the base of the left heel and place the other foot firmly above the pubis. Keep the chin steadily on the chest. Remain motionless with the sense organs under control, and with steady vision look at the spot between the eyebrows. This is called Siddhasana. It throws open the door to emancipation. Siddhasana, is directly referring to siddhis, the paranormal characteristics or the paranormal abilities, which are all located in the crown chakra. So the name of the pose already indicates, on top of everything else, that this is a very particular pose. How does it work? First of all, you sit on the heel. See that? The heel is pointing up. So my foot is not flat. My heel is pointing up. And I sit on the heel. For a man, that is between the anus and the root of the penis. For a woman, that is just in front of the anus, basically the entrance to the vagina. So, in contrast with Sutra 34, this is not a most comfortable pose. It is, however, a very powerful pose. What is important is that you don't passively sit on your heel, because that is very uncomfortable, unnecessarily uncomfortable. You sit with a hollow back. So you tilt the pelvis, your weight is partially on your knees, reducing the weight on your heel. What is also important is that you don't end up sitting like this. If you don't pay attention, you naturally end up sitting like this. Use your muscles in your pelvis to level the hips. See? If you cannot put a half lotus in place, put your foot down. You can do it like this. That's not so important. If you can do it, of course, then you add a half lotus. Keeping the chin steadily on the chest means that you apply the throat lock, which you have learned in the pranayama, in the kumbhaka stage of the pranayama. You apply the throat lock. So you stretch up the neck, your hands on your knees, pelvis tilting forward, the back is a little bit hollow, you stretch up the neck and you tuck in the chin. Then you're being told to remain motionless, with the sense organs under control, which indicates that this is a meditation exercise. You're not just sitting on your heel, you're actually working mentally. And with steady vision, look at the spot between the eyebrows. The spot between the eyebrows is the root of the nose, and that is esoterically linked with Muladhara chakra, which is responsible for smell function. How is that related? This is a Kundalini exercise, which energy rises up through Surya Bindu, which is located in the center of Muladhara chakra. Now, why are you sitting on the heel? That has a very practical reason. Human beings naturally have their energy gravitating towards the bottom. To civilize, to cultivate higher characteristics in human beings, we need that energy to go up. Sitting on the heel makes you acutely aware of the location where energy rises up. It's a location where most people have no conscious awareness in the bottom of the pelvis. So that discomfort makes it impossible to not be aware of that spot where Surya Bindu is located. So while you feel that discomfort, you do not allow yourself to be uncomfortable. You keep your sense organs under control, and with steady vision look at the spot between the eyebrows. Concentrate on nada. That is the most powerful way to do this. While you have that discomfort in your groin, you concentrate on nada and you pull huge amounts of energy up. All throughout the explanation I stayed on my heel. I hope you did so too. The moment that you get off, and you just keep your eyes closed and allow the energy to settle down, you feel the heat. You feel the heat? I'm almost sweating. So it may seem a stupid thing to do, to sit on the heel and cause that discomfort, but it is a very powerful pose. It really is. It's so powerful, it throws open the door to emancipation. It brings you back to your essence. You know what emancipation is?
Liberation.
Yeah, it's liberation. To rise above your conditioning, all the conditioning you have underwent since you were born. So, in a practical sense, what this leads to, emancipation is based on insight, consciousness. And you more and more come to the conclusion that you are a universal being, that you're not Dutch or a yogi or a man or a woman. You come to the conclusion that we're all the same. This is natural development in all yoga practitioners. Emancipation, liberation, leading to the discovery of your true self, your true characteristics. It sounds very mysterious or even unrealistic, but it is a very natural development that all of you go through. Already in the process you are. 36. According to another view, placing the left ankle above the pubis and keeping the other ankle above it is Siddhasana. So it is an asymmetric pose. So you always have to repeat it on the other side for the sake of balance. 37. Some say this is Siddhasana, others know it as Vajrasana, some call it Muktasana, and others speak of it as Guptasana. Sutra 37 gives 4 different names to this exercise, which are all superlatives. Siddhasana, that is the highest development of a human being, where your royal characteristics awaken as a result of energy rising up to the level of the crown chakra. Then, it is also known as Vajrasana. Vajra is a thunderbolt. You know what a thunderbolt is? A flash of lightning when it's raining and crack-a-crack-a-tack. You have the thunder and the lightning. The lightning, that is Vajra. So again, referring to that energy rising up. Not just energy, but huge amounts. Muktasana, mukta means liberated. We talked about just before. Emancipation is in fact liberation. Find back in the meaning of the name, one of the names they have given it. And the last one is Gupta. Many Indian people, their family name is Gupta. It means protector. Protector in this sense, in this context, means all that energy that you develop makes you stronger, better, healthier. In that sense, you're protected. 38. The Siddhas know that as among yamas, a moderate diet is the most important, and among niyamas, harmlessness, so among all asanas is the Siddhasana. This is a symbolical way to emphasize the importance of this pose. Actually, the sutra is saying it is the most important of all asanas. (39) Of the 84 postures, one should always practice Siddhasana. It purifies the 72,000 nadis. 72,000 nadis. If you look at the subtle anatomy, there is Ida and there is Pingala. It seems there are only two energy channels. And then there is possibly the third channel when harmony occurs. But the reality is there are many more. Your whole body is a network full of energy channels. 72,000 approximately. I never counted them. But energy is of course everywhere, not only Ida and Pingala alongside the spine. But Siddhasana purifies the 72,000 nadis. How does that work? When energy is uncontrolled, like in normal human beings who do not exercise to control energy and to accelerate energy, the energy flow becomes sluggish, slow. An exercise like this, yoga in general, Siddhasana in particular, accelerates the energy flow to very high speed. You know what happens? It's like with water when you clean. If you spray water on a dirty object and it's just a very slow drizzle of water, doesn't really clean. But if you turn open the tap and the spray of water coming out is very strong, it blows away all the dirt in its way. That is what that energy is doing that you generate. It sounds a little bit far-fetched, but the reality is that all our diseases and also lack of consciousness is caused by energy not being able to find its way up, because the energy channels are obstructed. Accelerating the energy on a regular basis, which you do with every time you practice yoga, but in particular with certain powerful poses like Siddhasana, accelerating the energy increases the capacity of your energy channels. It's like when you have a bathtub at home. So you install a bathtub at home, but you use the old water pipes. They are very small in diameter, maybe half an inch, so you open the tap fully, water, cold and hot, and yet it takes 15 minutes for the bathtub to fill up. That is the condition of normal, unconditioned human beings of the energy channels. But when you install a bathtub, you need high capacity water pipes. So you install 1-inch water pipes. You turn open the tap and 5 minutes later your bath is full. You can see it like that. Practice yoga in general, Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, Siddhasana, increase the capacity of the energy channels, which is the cause of the changes that take place in you, which, if it is correct, you have started noticing from the very first class that you started practicing yoga. And Sutra 39, like 38, also says that out of all asanas, Siddhasana should always be practiced, indicating that it is an important, powerful pose. 40, the yogin who, contemplating the self with a capital S and following a moderate diet, continually practices the Siddhasana during 12 years, obtains fulfillment. Fulfillment means complete liberation. We talked last week about reincarnation, that a normal human being has to go through 1,000,000 lives in order to evolve to the point that you are liberated and do not have to be reborn anymore. Apparently 12 years of Siddhasana leads to skipping all these 1,000,000 lives. That is symbolism, of course. It's yet again another way of indicating that this is an important pose, a powerful pose, asana. But there are people who take this literally, and there are, once a year there is a festival in India where tens of thousands of people go. I think it's called Kumbhala or Kumbhawa, Festival of Light.
Kumbhamela.
Yeah. Kumbhamela. And it's like it's a festival, so many people involved in spiritual practices go there. You find very ancient traditional yogis there, and I've seen a documentary where the cameraman focused in on a person standing in the tree pose, and one leg was basically rotting away. And interviewing the yogi, he told the interviewer that he was standing in the pose for 12 years. So, of course, the question arises, how did he get there? How is he going to leave? Maybe they carry him away, but what he is claiming is that he has been standing in that pose for 12 years. Because texts like this promise total enlightenment, total liberation. But that's very extreme. There are not many people crazy enough to do something like that, but it happens, and there are examples of it, to the point that one side of the body is totally atrophying, that the muscles are just withering away. It's very extreme, and with what you know, the yamas and the niyamas, this is out of all proportion, of course. There's violence involved, there is untruth involved. Anyway, that is not the way that yoga brings you to enlightenment. In fact, approaching it in that way leads to new obstacles in your energy circulation, in my opinion. So, yeah. Don't end up doing crazy things like that. Even 12 minutes is very long, leave alone 12 years. 41. When the Siddhasana is mastered, of what use are the various other asanas? When the vital energy is well restrained by the practice of Kevala Kumbhaka, the Unmani Avastha, which gives the light, arises of its own without effort. You see, the author keeps hammering home the message that Siddhasana is unique among all other asanas. It's not only unique, it's the most powerful, it's the one that should always be practiced. Here is another sutra where he says that if you can do Siddhasana, what's the use of all the other asanas? You don't need them. When the vital energy is well restrained by the practice of Kevala Kumbhaka is pranayama without counting, without structure as we are learning at the moment. After a certain period of time of practicing yoga in general and pranayama in particular, you build up more and more the count. We have increased from 12 to 16. We will next week go to 20, and eventually you end up in the maximum count of 80, 320, 160, 320. The purpose of pranayama is not the pranayama in itself. It is to bring about a new condition. to become more and more sattvic, regardless of the circumstances that you are in. Kevala Kumbhaka, we call spontaneous pranayama. What does that mean? You have practiced pranayama so much, so often, that simply the feeling that you are not in sattva, simply the feeling that your energy balance is off, that realization in itself will start a process where you naturally will add either Shiva or Shakti, depending on your condition, in order to restore the sattva condition. That's Kevala Kumbhaka, so that is a perfect form of pranayama, which you achieve by continually practicing pranayama for a certain period of time. Certain period of time means a couple of years at least. Another superlative is Unmaniyavashta. Unmaniyavashta is the condition of contemplation in the crown chakra. Unmani is the mantra, 3-syllable mantra that belongs to the crown chakra. Remember? All the lower chakras have a 1-syllable mantra. Lam, Ram, Vam, Bam. Only the crown chakra has a 3-syllable mantra. Why is it mentioned here? Another superlative indicating the enormity of Siddhasana. Satmarama cannot stop glorifying the pose. He thinks it's that important. 42nd, when there is complete mastery of the Siddhasana alone, the 3 bandhas follow naturally and without effort. I referred to this sutra before when we learned about the bandhas. The bandhas in generally, they are either practiced wrong or they are practiced in a very superficial way. And to make a shortcut or to short circuit that mistake, I told you from the very beginning that actually it is a very natural process in which you don't have to deliberately strain muscles, especially not in the pelvic bottom. But when you sit straight in your meditation and your concentration is in Ajna Chakra, you naturally become very straight. You erect, your spine erects, your chin tucks in, your pelvis tilts, and your belly tucks in, very naturally. That is what is meant here. So not only with Siddhasana. When Siddhasana is mastered, your condition is altered in such way that those bandhas are there all the time. Not only when you do pranayama or not only in the kumbhaka stage, but all the time. When you're finished with your pranayama, you may have noticed already that you remain straight. And your chin remains tucked in and your pelvis remains tilted. That means that when the pranayama is finished, the bandhas are not. They still remain in place. That is what this sutra is basically confirming, that it is correct. 2 things. They happen spontaneously. As a result of your changing condition, you become straighter, not only in your yoga practice, but outside of your practice too. 2 is the bandhas, they're not limited only to your kumbhaka stage in the pranayama. So instead of perceiving the bandhas as something superficial that needs to be implemented separately, it's actually happening before you know it. It's very natural. It's very it's happening before you know it. 43. There is no asana like the Siddha, no kumbhaka like Kevala, No mudra like the Kechari, and no laya like that of the inner sound. So here, basically you have a summary of the most important aspects of yoga, which in most yoga classes are absent. But this is the 8th sutra in which Swatmarama is emphasizing the importance of Siddhasana. And he likens it to Kevala, which he mentioned in Sutra 41. But he also mentioned Kechari Mudra. You understand a little bit the Kundalini principle, which is Shakti energy rising up, but not just Shakti energy, it's reinforced Shakti energy. It's Shakti energy on steroids. Many yoga practitioners who do know about energy leave out one very important element. If you increase to a very high extent Shakti energy, Kundalini, you would end up with imbalance, rajas. Kechari mudra is a mudra where you take in the equivalent of Kundalini in the form of Shiva energy. Kechari mudra is a mudra where you take energy in from the top. In the Bible, it is written that Moses is walking through the desert with his people after escaping Egypt, and they spent 40 years in the desert. They had nothing to eat. They fed themselves from heaven. Manna. So in the Bible, if it's a Bible with illustrations, you see loaves of bread and fish raining from heaven. What they really did, or so it is believed, is they fed themselves with Kechari Mudra, with Shiva energy. There is a yogi, you can look it up. His name is Pralajani. Pralajani is an old yogi who claims that he was touched by God when he was 11 years old, and ever since then he never ate or drank anything. So he's now in his, I think he's in his 80s now, and he doesn't eat or drink. Now that's unbelievable. So a group of medical scientists have put him 14 years ago, I think. They put him in a hospital in controlled circumstances with 24 hours a day observation, camera observation, for 10 days. He never ate, which is possible, 10 days. He never drank a drop, which is not possible. Nobody can go without water for 10 days. You can go without food, but not without water. Not only that, for 10 days, he never came out of his room. He never went to the toilet. 7 years after that first experiment, they extended it and they put him in the same controlled circumstances for 14 days. Same story. They could not catch him eating, drinking, or going to the toilet. They even measured some formation of liquid in his bladder, but they cannot explain. So what Pralajani is saying, that he says that he is feeding himself through a hole in the palate, which is Shiva energy. That is Kechari Mudra. It is the Shiva equivalent of Kundalini. Together, the two together lead to a highly energized sattva, that is the cause of the opening up of the heart, the burning heart of Christ. It is also why in ancient pictures, you can see also still in churches with stained glass windows, you can see Mother Maria or a saint looking up at a light in the distance. And it appears as if that image is looking at God in the clouds. But what you're really doing is looking at, symbolically, looking at that source of energy. Shiva energy in large amounts is light. That is why you see light when you meditate. You start with Shakti, with your asana, with your concentration, but then once your meditation is going, the emphasis is more and more on Shiva flowing in. There is a sutra coming up that actually describes that in a very complex way. Like with the bandhas, this is something that happens naturally if you meditate, so do not try to theorize it, because then you get a headache. Laya, the fourth superlative mentioned in the sutra, Laya is what often yoga teachers call fusion. If you ask yoga teachers, what is yoga about, or what does yoga mean? Many yoga teachers will say fusion or unity. It is the total becoming the wholeness of the human being, or the total becoming one of the human being. That is Laya, absorption. Absorption with what? With the universe. Beyond your ego, beyond your physical body. And the last superlative mentioned is the inner sound, nada. So nada is crucial in your yoga practice. It's a very simple, practical tool that most yogis or meditators have never heard of. 44. Then the Padmasana is described. Place the right foot on the left thigh and the left foot on the right thigh. Cross the hands behind the back and firmly take hold of the toes. Place the chin on the chest and look at the tip of the nose. This is called Padmasana. It destroys the diseases of the self-restraint. Padma is lotus. Lotus flower. It is meditation pose where your feet are on your thighs. This is the ideal meditation pose. Why? Because without effort, energy rises up. So it enables meditation in a very natural way, more than Sukhasana. But not everybody can do Padmasana. And most people who can do Padmasana, after a couple of minutes, become uncomfortable. Either your ankles, because there's a lot of pressure, or the knees, or the lower back, the hips. Then when you become uncomfortable, it becomes a distraction. Meditation is difficult. That is why Sukhasana, literally the easy pose, is preferable. But if you can do Padmasana and sit in Padmasana for extended time without distraction, this is the best pose for meditation, the most powerful pose for meditation. Because the energy rises up on its own accord. What is described here is not just Padmasana, but Pada Padmasana. So after taking on Padmasana, then the sutra then tells you to grab your feet with your arms around your back. Pada means restraint. So my left arm is a little bit short, or my waist has become a little bit too big. I'm sure somebody here can do it. Hanjin is doing it. And Sanyong also, easy.
Big waist.
If you don't have too much samgyeopsal around the waist, then might be possible. I have too much of it. But, like the previous Siddhasana, this is also a very typical meditation pose, because the sutra says, place the chin on the chest, you apply the throat lock, you look at the tip of the nose, not with your eyes, then you end up looking funny. With your eyes closed, of course, you concentrate on the center of your head, because the nose is the smell, and maybe you remember, but we'll repeat it anyway. The chakras symbolically lie within one another. They are located along the spine, but they also lie in the center of the head. And I explained this when we talked about Ajna Chakra being the commander-in-chief. When there is trouble in one of your lower chakras and you concentrate on Ajna Chakra has the power to overrule the lower chakras. So if you meditate and you create sattva in Ajna Chakra, that sattva trickles down to all the chakras below. So very holistic approach. And the warning there was, remember, that you should not meditate on lower chakras, because although that may increase sattva in one chakra, it leads to an imbalance between the chakras among each other, as opposed to that concentration on Ajna Chakra leads to a harmony in all the chakras. So this is the center of the head, which is Ajna Chakra. So the mention of it in the sutra is basically saying, meditate. Meditate on nada, meditate on the center of the head.
According to Oriental medicine, our nose is our spine.
Okay.
Our nose is our spine.
Okay, I never heard of that.
Yeah, it is reflexology. So people cure disease on the spine by press on the nose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a big nose, so it will be very effective.
So this is the Muladhara.
Right, that's right. Muladhara Chakra.
Yeah, that's why they have the connecting.
Yeah. The function of Muladhara Chakra is smell,
Smell. Yeah.
which is the nose. The organ of smell is the nose.
So start with the nose is Muladhara.
Thank you for confirming. The final element of this sutra is that Padmasana destroys the diseases of the self-restraint. A self-restraint, that's you and me, people who practice yoga. We are the self-restraint. We have started taking control of ourselves and our lives. Diseases of the self-restraint are mental issues, psychological issues. People who are on the path of spirituality, not only yoga, but all practice that leads to awakening of consciousness, they bump into certain difficulties in life. You become more sensitive, literally, leading to more emotions. And we think that is bad, but it is not. Remember, Carl Jung also came to the conclusion, energy is vitality. is emotion. One does not go without the other. True emotion makes unstable. Do not oppress the emotion because you kill the spirit. Instead, try to canalize it. Try to control it. And that is something you have to work for. Next week, after lunch, we will discuss pratyahara. It's related to how to deal with your increased sensitivity and your increased consciousness. Increased sensitivity and consciousness can lead to instability. So many yoga practitioners, and I have had people coming to this course who had practiced yoga for years, expected to be better as a result of it, but were confronted with their increased emotionality and scratching their head saying, why? I'm practicing, it's supposed to be good for me. Crying. I practice, and I even twice a day, and why? I kind of feel good, but then why am I so unstable? Why am I so emotional? Why do I feel so much pain? That is because yoga leads to increased sensitivity and consciousness. But if you don't know that, because you only practice but you do not study, so you are not aware of the changes that you are going through and how to deal with them, then you end up like that. That is the diseases of the self-restraint. Ajita used to call it the diseases of the disciple. So every yoga practitioner goes through that. It's not a bad thing. That is important that you keep that in mind. And if it ever happens that you are lost, are stuck, you send me an email. Because you should not get stuck in such a condition of emotional instability. It is part of the process you are in, and I can give you a little bit of insight in a practical way that will help you to overcome something that you otherwise would stay stuck in for sometimes for months or even years. Okay? Remember that. 45-46. Another view. Place the feet with effort, soles up, on the opposite thighs, and place the hands, palms facing upwards between the thighs. Direct the eyes to the tip of the nose and place the tip of the tongue at the root of the front teeth and the chin on the chest. And slowly raise upwards the prana by, ignore that last part. Slowly raise upwards the prana. This Padmasana, it's a variation. People meditate like this, but this is kind of what is described here. But the sutra explicitly tells you to raise apana prana, which is the vital energy of Muladhara chakra. We come back to Muladhara chakra all the time because it's the source of Kundalini energy, which is the characteristic of these 4 quintessential poses of Shiva. The last phrase, by contracting the anus in the Mula Bandha, it's better to erase that. You do not contracting the anus in Mula Bandha. That is the root lock. You do not do that by, on a gross level, contracting the muscles in the pelvic bottom. Don't do that. You know by now that those muscles are gently, in a subtle way, engaged because you sit straight. And there's nothing more that you have to do for that effect to take place. It's subtle, it's not gross or coarse. It's subtle phenomenon. It's happening already before you are aware of it. So again, you're told to direct the eyes to the tip of the nose, but it also says to place the tip of the tongue at the root of the front teeth. This is a principle that you also find in Kung Fu, in martial arts. This is a side view. So here is your nose, my nose, your mouth, eyes, 2 hairs, 3. It is believed in Oriental medicine, in Oriental philosophy, it is believed that there is a meridian that goes from the lower jaw. You recognize that?
Yeah.
From the lower jaw all around the body. The legs not included. And it ends up on the upper jaw. So the mouth is kind of the interruption of that meridian. So Buddhist practice, among Buddhist practice, there is the practice that you push your tongue against the root of the upper teeth. So you close the gap to circulate energy, to accelerate energy circulation. So that you find back in a kind of hidden form in this sutra. (47). This is called Padmasana. As if we didn't know that yet. It destroys all diseases. Ordinary persons cannot attain it. Only the intelligent on the earth attain it. It sounds like an elite practice. If you're not so intelligent, then you cannot do Padmasana. I'm not so intelligent. No. Intelligent here has a typical meaning. Everybody can do Padmasana. And many people do without knowing about Padmasana what we now know. Because Padmasana is not just a way in which you sit with your feet on your thighs. There is a lot to it. And according to Svatmarama, there's a lot special elements to it. It's an exercise that transforms the consciousness of a human being. And that is quite something. So intelligent here means the person, the practitioner, properly informed, properly taught, initiated student, which is you and me, of course. (48). Assuming well the Padmasana with the palms one upon the other on the lap, fix the chin firmly upon the chest and contemplating Brahman in the mind. Repeatedly raise the apana prana, the apana upwards, and bring the prana just drawn in downwards. So this is the phenomenon that I explained just before when we came across, what is it called again? Kechari Mudra in Sutra 43. You let large amounts of Shakti energy rise, Kundalini, but that alone is not enough. You also let the apana, you draw in the apana prana and you bring it downwards. Contemplating Brahman, Brahman is God. What does God have to do with this? You understand what God has to do with this? Many people will translate this as go to the church and worship. Go to the temple and worship.
Is it self, ourself?
No. To contemplate God means to be in awe. When you are in awe, all your energy channels open up. Being in awe is an emotion on the highest level of the human being. That is why we make a distinction between lower emotions and higher emotions. Lower emotions restrict your energy circulation. Higher emotions, they open up. They raise your spirit. So when you go to a church, do not dogmatically end up in prayer, but contemplate the miracle of life. Contemplate the miracle of the universe. If you honestly contemplate that miracle, you fill yourself with awe. And that is the purpose of religion, which most religious people have lost. Samadhi, the highest form of meditation that is surrounded by so much mystery, is that simple. It's simply choosing a higher feeling and then totally immersing yourself in that feeling. It is the origin of prayer. When you pray to Mother Maria or to Father God, you're not worshipping a person. You are filling yourself with awe. Sounds childish, stupid? No, it's energy control and very powerful. The whole purpose of art is to fill you with awe. You look at art and you, oh, wow, so beautiful. Stupid, huh? It's that simple. Adult human beings, most adult human beings, kill their spirit by acting like adults. When you're adult, you don't allow yourself anymore to be in awe. Because what would other people think of it? You're just acting like a little baby. So we always keep our face tight, and the most wonderful things pass us by and we are totally uninterested and not touched by it. But it has very severe consequences for our spiritual health, mental health. Go back to being a child again. You see a little ant creeping on the floor. Admire that little creature. Try to understand that it is a creature, that it has a purpose, it has a goal, it is going somewhere, trying to do something. Spring, we're in the middle of spring. Go to the park. Admire those wonderful flowers that only come once a year. That admiration, you feel it in your heart. Believe it or not, it's a very powerful tool, maybe more powerful than Siddhasana and Padmasana and all these special exercises described here, to bring your energy up. Next week you're not coming back to class anymore because you think, what a crazy, crazy yoga teacher. But it's that simple, really. You know, the yogis, they have a rosary. Catholics have a rosary too, Christians. But the rosary of a yogi is much longer. So they carry it around their neck, and it's usually twice around their neck. It has 108 beads. 108 is a kind of a magical number in Buddhism, in the Orient. The yogi's rosary has 108 beads. You know what the purpose is of each of those beads? With every bead going through your finger, you repeat, not in your mind but in your heart, a superlative. And with each superlative you say, wow. Not just wow, but really feeling that wow in your heart. It's the basis of samadhi, the highest form of meditation. There is an exercise which will come into the schedule in this course. It's called Malasana. Mala is this rosary of the yogi. So usually I tell you the story about the superlatives when we do the exercise. Now I'm telling you today, because the subject is going in that direction. Go back to admiring again. Just be like a little child. Most important, don't care about what other people think about it. I love living in Yoido. Why? Because there is a park in front of my door. I only have to cross the street and be in the park with all these little birds flying around and twittering and the flowers. Very beautiful, purple, yellow. You think I'm a stupid, childish yoga teacher now? It's very powerful. That it is the reason why governments who can afford it subsidize artists to create art. Governments who can afford it spend huge amounts on musea, building museums, and sponsoring artists to create art. Because the whole population benefits from it. Without knowing, it elevates your spirit, literally. Funny, eh? Then you're doing your triangle pose and your shoulder stand, and today you learn a headstand, but you can actually just admire. And I'm telling you today that's a higher form of yoga. Why is it higher form of yoga? It's so simple that you don't believe it. You have to go through all these difficult steps before you end up coming to that simple conclusion. We will come back to it.
There is an approach to the religion that makes sense, to make all the things you say sense.
Yes.
The ancient people try to create God and saint and other like supernatural to actually to symbolizing all the human characters. It means it is a characteristic essence of the human, not the God.
The thing with religion is that the ancient people had it right, but they communicated in symbolism. They were not rational like you and I are as the result of many, many years of education. Not only that, ancient people had it right, but rulers, governments, then started using religion to control their people, to control them, to tax them, and to keep them down. If you don't behave, not only will we throw you in prison, but what's really scary, God will come down and punish you. And religion has been abused in that way for thousands of years. And it has become institutionalized. And we don't even know anymore what religion in essence is about. But with what you learn here, you will have a totally new idea of what religion really is about. I'm an atheist, which means I don't believe in God. I do, but not in the dogmatic God that is being worshipped all around the world in many different kinds of religions. There is a little addition to Sutra 48. By this, a man or a woman obtains unequaled knowledge through the power of Kundalini. "49. The yogin seated in the Padmasana posture, by steadying the energy drawn in through the nadis, becomes liberated. There can be no doubt about this. I think it is clear. I don't have to add anything to that anymore. Maybe in relation to what I just mentioned before reading this sutra, what religion has turned into is totally the opposite of what it is meant to achieve. Instead of opening consciousness and liberation, it is being abused to keep people in the dark, which means keep their consciousness from opening up and keep them imprisoned. When people evolved and developed systems of practice that led to enlightenment, governments did not like that. Why? Because you start asking questions. You start asking inconvenient questions. When you develop consciousness, you start seeing what is fair and what is not. And you see that your king or your ruler, your village chief, is behaving in unfair ways. And normal people just go with the flow and don't question that, but you opened your consciousness as a result of some form of practice. And you become a rebel. You start asking questions, especially to authority. You know that Jesus Christ was an extremist, was a rebel. We think of Jesus Christ as being a holy person who only prays all day. He was not. He was incredibly rebellious. That's why they hung him on a cross. The Roman emperor ordered his death because he was causing too much trouble to the government. So the government made their own religion, and they turned it into something completely the opposite of what it is designed to do. Awakening and liberating. In countries where people have reached a certain level of education, less and less people go to church or temple. When my mom was young, My country, the Netherlands, was a very religious country, like most European countries, or all European countries have been for ages, for centuries. Now, the majority of the people claim to be atheist. We have liberated ourselves again. Interestingly, many people, as a result, started focusing on Eastern philosophy and Eastern religion. And eventually we find the middle. Because Eastern religion is just as dogmatic as Western religion. Buddhism, Hinduism, and what have you. All we want is the truth. You become educated. You don't believe the lies anymore. The lies that my mom believed. But you need something. So you're going to search for the truth. You're going to search for alternative truths. Eventually, you end up with your own truth. You throw everything into the mix and you draw your own conclusions. That is the power of contemplation. Okay. Next week we will continue with Sutra 50 and conclude chapter 1. Let's have a short break.